As I have been saying repeatedly, the Giants' slow start has largely been due to the fact that they have not pitched well as a team. They desperately needed some wins in Houston, and what happened? Tony DeSclafani and Logan Webb put together just back-to-back absolute masterpieces that led the Giants to a series win over the defending World Series champions.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube. And man, the Giants needed some positive momentum. On this road trip going to Mexico City, they lose both games to the Padres. Going to Houston, playing the defending champs, they lose the first game. And honestly, it was kind of like insult to injury with Mauricio Dubon and his post-game comments about how the Giants didn't treat him right. And he just was saying, thank God they don't have a need for me anymore, because he just certainly wouldn't want to be there. And then we had Dwayne Kuiper telling him, basically saying he needs to keep his mouth shut. And then Mike Krukow today saying the same thing. So we'll get more into Dubon later, who, by the way, just went silent in the last two games of this series as the Giants went on to win behind excellent starting pitching. And you need that. And something I've said so much is when your pitching struggles, you often look to the offense to come back in games, and then you're the offense isn't doing enough. So you're blaming the wrong side there, in my opinion. It happens a lot. If you give up 6 runs and you've scored 4, and it's come on, get 3 more runs and win this game. Well, you gave up 6 runs, and that's more of the problem. So in these last 2 games, the Giants scored a total of 6 runs. That's 3 runs a game, and normally that's not going to be enough to win, but sometimes you need your pitchers to go out there and put together the types of performances we saw in the last 2 games by Tony DeSclafani and Logan Webb. And honestly, DeSclafani has been the most consistent Giant starter this season, and he's been the stopper on several occasions when the Giants have had a little losing streak or a long losing streak going. He's gone out there and just given them more than just a quality start, just excellent starts in which he's just in total command. And that was what we saw last night as he pitched 8 shutout innings against a potent Houston Astros lineup. And if you just look at some of the numbers, the strikeout rate isn't going to blow you away. It's a little bit below average. The walk rate, though, he's only walked 2% of the hitters that he's faced all season. And that is really low. I believe I read somebody mentioning that's the lowest rate in Major League Baseball, and that doesn't surprise me one bit. 2% walk rate. I mean, 2 out of every 100 batters he's faced. I'm not even sure he's faced 100 batters, but 144. So 2 out of 100 are walks. So that's great. Getting the ball on the ground at an above average rate, and just overall, a 2.13 ERA, a 3.39 fielding independent pitching, a 3.40 expected fielding independent pitching. So I wouldn't expect him to carry a low 2s ERA moving forward, but just he's been in total command in a lot of these starts, and just completely not the guy we saw last year and completely the guy we saw in 2021. And a lot of people, I don't know quite how many, but certainly a vocal minority perhaps on Twitter and YouTube comments and whatever, were giving up on this guy and criticizing the signing of DeSclafani after the great season he had with the Giants in 2021, based on 5 outings in 2022 in which he was injured enough that he had to quit, call it quits from the season and say, I need ankle surgery, which he had and they fixed it. And all reports were that he had a great offseason. I saw video of him, just working out intensely and throwing what looked to be vigorous kind of bullpen sessions in like December. And so I was optimistic. And then he came into camp and he just looked good in camp when games were televised and I was able to watch him. And it has carried over into the season. And so it just goes to show you that, what happened last year doesn't always carry over into the next year. It's just like the defense so far this year. The Giants defense, while not perfect, and today it was especially a little bit shakier than normal. They made, I think, about 3 plays that should have been made, didn't get made today. But overall, has the defense really been what sunk the Giants? No, I would definitely say not. It's been more of just allowing too many runs. And certainly on offense, they haven't been perfect. And, they've had a tendency to put up some runs and then go cold the rest of the game, which has, and then when you have a pitching staff that has allowed other teams to come back and continue to score as the game moves along in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and you're just continuing to not put up zeros, those early runs you put up prove not to be enough. And then, like I said, you fall behind and then you start to look to the offense to come back and then say the offense is the problem. But generally speaking, if they could just pitch well sometimes or a lot of the time, like we saw the last 2 days with DeSclafani and Webb, you're going to put yourself in a great position to win games. And so they need that. And like for Logan Webb, who we're going to talk about next, he pitched today and pitched essentially a gem. It's unfortunate, once again, bit by the home run ball. It was the last batter he faced, I believe. Alex Bregman hits a 2-run homer against him. I just cannot believe the home run situation for Logan Webb, who's now given up 8 on the season. He gave up 11 all of last year and 9 in 2021 in 148 innings in 2021 and 192 innings in 2022. It's been 45 innings this year, and he's almost matched the numbers from each of the last couple of years. And so just a kind of fluky home run thing going on with Logan Webb here, and it's sad it came on the final batter he faced deep into the game, because before that he's pitching a shutout into the 8th inning, just like DeSclafani. So coming up in just a minute, we'll turn our attention to Webb and so much more. Joey Bart showing that he belongs, having a huge impact on both of these wins in many different ways. And roster moves, Camilo Doval having more pitch clock issues, and more, really, frankly. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on subscriptions, but the actual total is closer to $200, more than 2 times as much. If you don't know exactly how much you're spending every month, you need Rocket Money. Rising prices stressing you out. If you're looking for ways to cut costs, you need Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. This is key for me. I have used it and had subscriptions I didn't even know about, and I'm making these monthly payments. It goes over my head. I have no idea, but Rocket Money presents it to you and gives you the easy option of canceling those unwanted subscriptions. So stop throwing your money away. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb, rocketmoney.com/lockedonmlb. All right, as promised, just so much more to get into. I want to get into just the game today and Logan Webb's outing and just kind of what the numbers are looking like for Logan Webb. Today wasn't a big strikeout day. The Astros, they don't strike out a ton, and so the strikeouts for Webb, only 5 in 7 2/3 innings, but I mean, hardly anything really to complain about. He wasn't at his best early. The slider command was not there. He was missing, away to right-handed hitters with the slider consistently. So those were like easy takes for the hitters. So he's kind of been fighting through some things pretty much all of last year and this year, and yet he still puts up good numbers. That's what's scary about Logan Webb. Like, if he really is on the top of his game, which I think we saw mostly in 2021, and like in that playoff start the first playoff start against the Dodgers in 2021. That's like Logan Webb at his best. The pitches had the perfect kind of movement for him and just tons of swing and miss, and hitters just baffled and they don't know what's coming, and it's coming in, it's coming away, it's sinking. And so we haven't quite seen that the perfect pitch shapes, I would say, from Logan Webb, and yet still, like now on the season, the ERA is down to 3.80, which is not great, but and the fielding independent pitching is even higher at 4.08. But this is where I come in and say all the time, fielding independent pitching is heavily influenced by home runs. And so if you've given up 8 homers in 45 innings, he's given up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. So like 1 or 2 per 9 innings, but more often 2, then your fielding independent pitching is going to take a little bit of a hit. So the fact that it's actually only 4.08 speaks to the fact that his strikeout rate, getting nearly 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, walk rate, minuscule. He did walk 2 today. So kind of everything else working in his favor except the home run. And that's how it played out today. And the batting average on balls in play for Logan Webb also coming into this game was high at 333, but today was a day where the home run thing didn't stabilize, normalize. He one batter away from getting through an outing without giving up a homer there. But what did come down to earth in this game was the batting average on balls in play. He had a good BABIP day where the average on balls in play against him was only 190. And so coming into the start, it was 333, the batting average on balls in play against him. And after this start, it's down to 307. And so that's just kind of what I refer to as like a normalization of this number. And I believe the home run stuff is going to do the same thing over time. And even 307, actually, I mean, his career batting average on balls in play against him is 311. And so maybe that's kind of normalized to his where about we should expect it to be for him. But the home run thing, like I said, he's way over. In his career, he's allowed 0.69 home runs per 9 innings. And this year, like I said, 1.60. Almost a whole extra home run per 9 innings versus his career average. And so that's kind of crazy. But all in all, it was just a really good start. And it was one pitch, kind of a middle, I think, change up to Alex Bregman with 2 outs in the 8th. But you need some good starting pitching performances every now and then. Like, just sometimes you got to have your guys go out there and pitch a shutout or go 7 shutout innings and have the bullpen close it down the rest of the way. Allow 0-1 run in a game. And they got that in these last couple days, and that's how they were able to beat the Houston Astros and win this series on the road against the defending World Series champions. By the way, the Giants play the Brewers in their next game on Friday at 7:15 Pacific. The Brewers are a good team. They're going to be coming off a series in Colorado. Sometimes coming from altitude and then going back on the road can make you sluggish in your first couple games back. And maybe we saw some of that in game 1 for the Giants back in Houston after the altitude in Mexico City. So we'll see how that plays out. Catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. And also, thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. Coming up tomorrow, the Everydayers will hear us doing a mailbag episode. I've got some left over from previous mailbags, and we'll have a brand new prompt out there tonight, Wednesday night, for you to post questions that we'll get to tomorrow. So I can't wait for that. But moving on from just I can't emphasize enough, outstanding and much needed performances by Tony DeSclafani and Logan Webb, I want to turn my attention to Joey Bart. Because, first of all, this relates to Joey Bart, but Gary Sanchez, he had his opt-out day, and he chose to opt out. And he had the choice to opt out only if the Giants didn't put him on the Major League roster. And so they elected not to put him on the roster, and he elected to opt out of his minor league deal with the Giants. And so this speaks to the Giants' belief in Joey Bart and Blake Sable, and also Ricardo Genovese and Patrick Bailey, who was promoted to AAA. And so they've got 4 catchers that I think they believe at least 1 or 2 will be able to make it. And for Joey Bart, just in the last couple games alone, like he had he played a major role in each of these 2 wins. I don't remember, I don't have the numbers pulled up for what he did offensively in the middle game of this series that the Giants won 2-0. But what stands out to me was in the bottom of the 9th inning with Camilo Doval continuing to have pitch clock issues, Joey Bart alertly calling timeout for a mound visit 2 times in a full count to Yordan Alvarez with, a 2-run lead where Camilo Doval is moments away from a pitch clock violation that is a free base runner that puts the tying run at the plate instead of getting a pitch off. And so twice Joey Bart had to do this, alertly aware of the clock, like so many things going on. You're trying to call the right pitches. I have no idea what Doval is doing. To me, he's just like disagreeing with the pitch suggestions. They need to figure that out with him. Today, it wasn't a factor. He closed out today's game as well, but Joey Bart, just like heroically, that should not go underappreciated. You're second away from giving away for free bringing the tying run to the plate. And so the kind of comfort for Joey Bart and like the leadership and frankly the defensive skills, like the blocking and the framing and the throwing, have improved. And also the bat. What I am seeing from Joey Bart that I needed him to do in order to believe in his potential is I'm seeing more contact, and especially more contact on pitches in the strike zone. So just today, and I've seen it several times this season. It's not just like one time. You're getting to like maybe a 2-strike count and they throw a tough pitch on him. And instead of just swinging through it, strike 3, sit down, he's fighting it off and maybe not even squaring it up, but he's a big, strong guy that he's able to like flip it into the outfield and get a knock. And that is what he did today. And it led to that he ended up scoring, I believe it was, the first run of the game for the Giants in that, singles against, starts a rally against Valdez with a single and scores the first run. And then with 2 outs against Phil Maton, later in the game, he hit a booming double that brought home the 3rd run. And so he just had his fingerprints all over these 2 wins. And then Blake Sabol, he's had his own like strikeout, swing and miss issues, but also has continued to just hit for power, hit a ball off the wall to left in the game, the middle game of the series that the Giants won that contributed a run in a game where runs were hard to come by. And so Bart and Sabol, and then having Patrick Bailey and Ricardo Genoves in AAA and no longer Gary Sanchez, you feel good enough about it. And I'm just proud of Joey Bart. And like I have said over and over, I have nothing personal against him. I do wish him nothing but the best. And if he succeeds, that's the best thing that could happen for the Giants at this position. But I was skeptical unless he made significant changes. And so far, it's a small sample. He's only had 48 plate appearances. He missed some time with the groin injury and something else to start the season, a back issue as well. So he's missed quite a bit of time. But when he's been out there, I've just been impressed. And demeanor-wise, he just looks comfortable, finally, really, at the major league level. And so that's just great to see, and I'm really happy for him. Was always rooting for this guy. Still has something to prove for me, but seeing positive signs is a good thing. So coming up in just a minute, the Giants made a couple of roster moves. There's some new guys on the roster. They sent out Sean Jelly after a really poor performance in the loss in the first game. They called somebody up for the first time all year, a bullpen arm to get excited about, and they also made some major kind of moves in the minor league system with guys getting promoted. So we'll get into all of that in just a minute. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you play, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competitions and rewards. So Rare recently partnered with MLB All-Stars Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez. Head to sorare.com/lockedon, that's spelled SORARE.com, to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. All right, here we go. I just want to discuss some roster moves that the Giants have made. There's some that were made that I didn't even discuss, and then there are some more that were made that I'm going to discuss in more detail here. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we'll be doing a mailbag episode where we answer as many of your questions as we can. I've got some leftover ones, but also we'll put out a prompt where you can ask on Twitter for some new ones. So follow me there at Ben Kaspick if you want to ask a question. And by the way, also the Giants play the Brewers this Friday at home at Oracle Park at 7:15 Pacific. Brewers are a good team, but as of right now, they've lost a couple games in a row. They're playing at altitude. We'll see how that affects them, but they're a good team, and so it'll be a test for the Giants. Catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. So anyway, the move I want to mention is in the bullpen, because Sean Jelly, I hate to say it, but was simply not getting it done. And it was an issue with command. Like, if you look at, I've talked a lot about the overall pitching numbers, but I have kind of failed you in a way in breaking it down by starters and relievers, because the Giants starters, generally speaking, have been okay, but the relievers, this is coming into today, had a 6.34 ERA for the Giants. And so I've kind of failed you as a listener by not mentioning that. And I kind of just lumped all. It's funny because a lot of their relievers are guys who are also starters. Like Sean Jelly can be a starter, and Ross Stripling and Sean Manaea and Jacob Junis. Like, a lot of these guys have pitched out of the pen and have contributed to these numbers. And so I've kind of just lumped everyone together. The Giants, like, quote-unquote starters, guys who have actually started games, coming into today had a 3.46 ERA, and that went down with Logan Webb's outing today. And so really it's been the bullpen. When I say the pitching has been the problem for the Giants, I mean, a 6.34 ERA out of the pen is just simply unacceptable. And not to rag on a guy, but just to tell it like it is, Sean Jelly on the season has an ERA of 10.13. He's allowing over a run per inning on average. It is just 13 innings, but that means what? He's allowed 14 runs, I would suppose. 15 earned runs in 13 and a third innings. Walk rate of 13.5%. And it's not just the walks, it's falling behind, consistently not being able to command his pitches. And kind of reminds me of what we've seen from Sean Manaea, in that the stuff has been better. Like, he's throwing 97, he's throwing high 80s sliders and whatnot, and he used to be like a low 90s guy. And so they've been able to help him add velocity. And Sean Manaea is the same way. He's throwing 97. Last year he was averaging like 90, 91 with his fastball. And so this is intentional, and they're not just like giving them steroids. They're sending them to facilities that help guys improve their velocity. But it seems like in both of their cases, with Manaea and with Jelly, we've seen just an inability to command. It's like they've found a new skill, or like they've basically got a new arm, and they just haven't been able to control it. It's like you buy a supercar and you're used to driving, I don't know, a Corolla or whatever, and then you just suddenly, it's just hard to control the supercar because you're not used to that kind of power. So that may be a strange analogy or whatever, and maybe I'm off base as to if that's the reason for this. But I mean, it just wasn't working. Like, and they used him in some high leverage innings in that first game, Sean Jelly. And apparently, like Logan Webb said, 3/4 of the team is ill right now with some sort of stomach bug. And so, a lot of guys in the pen were like unavailable, I guess, and they had to lean on Sean Jelly heavily despite it being big innings down the stretch in that game, and it cost them. He gave up a ton of runs and was just totally out of control, had no command. And so he gets sent down where they're going to stretch him out as a starter. And Cole Waits, who initially was a guy we thought might make the opening day roster, but he had a lat issue that slowed him down in in spring training. He didn't pitch until the end of spring training, but he gets called up here, and he's a guy who barely pitched last season. He pitched in 5 2/3 innings with the San Francisco Giants and put together a 3.18 ERA. Walk rate was high. If you look at his Sacramento numbers, the walk rate was also high, but he got it under control in his last 5 outings. I think the walk rate was under 5% over his last 5 outings combined, whereas in 11 outings overall, his walk rate was 23%, and that includes the 5 most recent ones when it was under 5. And so you can imagine what the other 6 outings looked like, probably walking 40% of the batters he faced. And so they can't have that. They need guys to throw strikes. Believe it or not, the Giants are one of the best teams in baseball at not walking people. It seems like there's certain guys who've had problems, but I'm just going to flat out tell you, coming into today's game, the Giants' walk rate as a team was 6.9%, tied with the Dodgers for the lowest in Major League Baseball. They just don't walk people, and that includes guys like Sean Jelly walking everybody. So, it's guys like DeSclafani, whose walk rate is the best in the league, that helps that overall number. So anyway, Cole Waits is in the pen. He didn't pitch, but I'm excited about him. I think he's got a really good 4-seam fastball, and if he's right with it, it's a really good pitch at both the top and the bottom of the zone because it has really good carry. So it creates the illusion to hitters that it's rising. So if you throw it at the top of the zone, they think they can hit it, and then it jumps over their bat. And if you throw it at the bottom of the zone to the hitter immediately out of the hand, they read it as below the zone, and it appears to jump up to the bottom of the zone. I'm not kidding. That's what really high spin on a 4-seam fastball can do, and that's why you see so many swings and misses at the top of the zone with really good 4-seam fastballs that have that high spin. So anyway, that's kind of what Cole Waits provides, and I'm excited to see it. He was the first draftee of this new regime to make it to the major leagues, and he's 24 years old, and we're going to see him, and so I'm looking forward to that. Lastly, I just want to say Mauricio Dubon, I could spend a lot more time talking about him, but Mike Krukow, here's what Krukow had to say. I wish the guy the best. We all do. He's a really nice guy, but for him to go out there and make comments to the Giants that he wasn't treated right or he wasn't given a fair opportunity, that's just wrong. That's not true. I wish him the best, but he needs to keep his mouth shut. And so, I don't know. I just love a good kind of feud, a good competitive feud. There's no real bad blood here. I guess there kind of is at this point, but again, I could go on and on. I pointed out on Twitter that Dubon had among the worst numbers in all of baseball since he's debuted. I'm not cherry picking at all. Since he's debuted in the majors, there's been 182 hitters, right-handed hitters, who have at least 500 plate appearances against right-handed pitchers. So not having the platoon advantage, being a right-handed hitter, facing right-handed pitching, since 2019, at least 500 times have those guys come up facing righties. And for him, he's I believe it was 6th worst out of those 182 players in weighted runs created plus against righties. And it's an all-encompassing offensive metric. 100 is league average, and Dubon was at 65. And so Dubon was platooned for that reason. He hit lefties well, but he did not hit righties well, and that's why the playing time was what it was. And for him to mouth off, it didn't sit well with a lot of people, including myself, including Kruk and Kipe. And, the Giants, they gave him an opportunity, and they showed off what he could do and his versatility, and shipped him off to a great situation. The Houston Astros are a really good team. It's not like they sent him off to the A's or the Tigers or something. They sent him to a really good team. And so for him to then trash his former team, just kind of, I don't know. I kind of agree with what Kruk and Kipe have said. So I have more to say about Dubon. Maybe a mailbag question will lead us to more about that tomorrow. The Giants play the Brewers on Friday at 7:15 Pacific, and The Brewers are good. Right now they're 18-11. The Giants just won 2 out of 3 against the defending World Series champions, and so hopefully they can keep that momentum going. Catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. And thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Tomorrow, the everydayers will hear us get to those mailbag questions about Dubon, about whatever it is you want to ask. So look out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick for the prompt. Once again, my name's Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thanks in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.